Good afternoon and welcome to the Authoritas Tea Time SEO, where we encourage everyone to take a break over their cup of tea or coffee. Maybe you might have a cup of tea, a cup of cake with you as well, maybe some biscuits. And we encourage everyone just to take a 15-minute break to connect with others and to also learn something new. So I'm SEO Joe Blogs, and I'm joined here by Carrie Shepherd, here working at Authoritas. And today we have got a very interesting topic about bad links. What is a bad link and how you should assess your links in 2020. So if you've enjoyed the Tea Time SEO so far, please subscribe to our channel. And if you enjoy what you're seeing today, click that nice little like button on our video. We've got 3 great speakers, all actually dialing in from 3 different countries. We have Dylan from Ottawa, Laura dialing in from Birmingham, and Sam from Croatia. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to them who introduce themselves, and then we'll have a nice Q&A at the end. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here in these crazy times. So I originally went to school for finance. That's my background. But about 7 years ago, I met Marie Haynes, and we did some link auditing around her kitchen table. So that was my introduction to SEO. She was working on some pretty large manual action penalties where she needed help doing link audits and just categorizing different types of links. From then on, I kind of had a strong interest in it. And in 2017, she started her own agency. That's when I applied for one of the first positions in her agency, and me and 2 other people joined the team. And since then, we've built up to about 10 really talented SEOs, and we do anything from traffic drop assessments to pretty large scale link audits again. And since then, I've also been working on helping people get manual actions removed, which is still going on a lot these days.
Hey, I'm Laura, and I own an agency in Birmingham called JellyBean. We focus on SEO and PR primarily, so links are a big part of what we do on a day-to-day. Like Dylan and Sam have experienced many sites in the past that have had manual penalties on them and the whole reconsideration request and that, and doing that particularly in the 2012 years, and when we've had all the penguins, that's always been quite fun to deal with. Yeah, trash TV, dogs, bacon. It's pretty much everything about me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Laura. And over to you, Sam.
I'm Sam McRoberts. I started building websites and dabbling in, what passed for SEO in the late 90s. About, I want to say 1999, maybe it was 98. I was, building websites for fun for me and friends and helping my mom with an eBay business, and just kind of have done that ever since. Focused primarily on SEO for the last 12 or 13 years. I run VUDU Marketing and specialize primarily in SEO audits and strategies. So I spend a lot of time looking at SEO from all angles, from the on-page keyword-centric stuff to the technical to linking, social signals, you name it. But links I find particularly fascinating, and the way that it's almost a constant cat and mouse game with Google and all the people trying to game Google. It's very amusing. So, and an interesting thing, I've been a digital nomad for the last 2.5 years, traveling around the world with my wife and son.
Yeah, but thank you very much. Yeah, it definitely is a cat and mouse game, and I think you're in Croatia now, so it seems like with the summer coming, it's a good place to be.
It is.
Well, thank you all of our speakers for taking the time. I know you are all very busy. I'm going to pass over to them who are going to share their tips with everyone, and drop your questions in the chat, and we'll answer them all later. Thank you.
All right, so I want to get started by, the topic is here, what is a bad link? And so obviously Google gives some pretty clear guidelines on what an actual bad link is. Obviously it's buying or selling links, excessive link exchanging, large scale guest posting. Large scale gets a little, what is large scale? That's kind of a difficult thing to determine. But I just want to talk about a few points that our organization has seen over the past few years doing manual action removals and doing large-scale link audits even without penalties on them. So the first one is we often have clients come to us and they either have a penalty or they want to get their links cleaned up, and they say they've been using automated tools to build their disavow files in the past. These are usually problematic just because these tools try to approximate PageRank, and for the most part, they just grab really low quality, really spammy, obvious links that are most likely being ignored by Google. I mean, Google's been around a long time and has been indexing the web for many, many years now. So they have a pretty good idea of what needs to be discounted already. So the real difficulty is finding ones that these tools don't really pick up. These are much more nuanced in that they need to be looked at manually and assessed by either the site owner or someone who has experience in the past trying to determine whether or not there's heavy keyword use, keyword anchor use in the text. I mean, these aren't your just really spammy directories anymore. These are large-scale guest posting and things like that that need to be cleaned up. That could cause a manual action in the future. And so the next one is kind of a difficult topic. It's when you build a really good piece of content, obviously people want to build links to it and do outreach and get attention to their new awesome piece of content that they've just written. And so there's a limit to what you can do in asking people to link to your site. And at a certain point, Google has an issue with it. So the scale, it's going to be really difficult to tell what is the limit there. But the point is that you need to have someone with experience or a site owner know whether or not they've paid someone to purchase these links, and whether or not, I mean, for me personally, it's really easy to tell when there's a guest post and there's like 10 keywords on the page that the site owner wants to rank for these terms, and in the guest post they've built them themselves. And so these ones you really, really need to be careful with, and it can really come back to bite you. Like we've seen, the difficulty is if you have this good piece of content, you're probably getting good links too. And so if you're building unnatural links and getting good natural links, if you get handed a manual action, it's really, really difficult to get rid of, because to Google, they're almost the same thing. And so they can't really tell the difference for the most part. And so that leads to me or my team doing many, many reconsideration requests. And as of right now, I mean, we've been waiting on some reconsideration requests because of the COVID situation. We've waited 2 months to hear back just a no. And so that means we have to go back again and take a look and get rid of more possibly good links. So scale is a difficult issue, but the point is that in the long run, it's better to just err on the side of caution and just really try to build links naturally. The last one is a little bit of a difficult topic. Again, it's stop building links against Google's guidelines. And that's it's hard to say to a lot of people, because many people only rank because they've been building links in the past. But the point is, it's Google's job to figure out who is manipulating the search results. And I mean, I'm a finance geek, and so I sometimes read these annual reports that Google puts out, and there's a risks section in those reports, and they actually go out of their way to say a risk to our business is people trying to manipulate results that aren't completely natural. And so in my view, and I think a lot of people's views, that Google's trying to attack this in both ends. They obviously want to protect and they want to serve the best results to people. And so they want to protect their bottom line, of course. And so they attack it in two ways. They either penalize people who are offending, or just manually or algorithmically suppress them who are just building links unnaturally. And then on the other end, we've seen natural language processing and algorithms like BERT come in, where they're probably going to start relying less on links over time, just understanding content itself. And so those are my main points for today.
Awesome.
For me, I kind of come at this from both the angle of link removals, and then we're also building links for people as well quite a lot of the time. So one of the most important things on both ends of the spectrum is context. So when we're looking at clients that have had manual penalties in the past, when they've come to us and asked us to help to fix that for them, it's always about, when we're looking through the backlink profile, completely agree with Dylan, don't rely on tools to do it for you. Like, it's the worst thing. It's about the context of the link, because actually if you're looking at your website and it's about, okay, well, if I'm talking about bikes, what kind of sites do I expect to be associated with? You know, travel makes complete sense if you're a cycling company. Business can also make sense in that as well, but yet you wouldn't expect to necessarily see yourself on sites to do with sex, because it's not relevant to what you do. Whereas on the flip, when we're looking to build links, context is also important, because you want to make sure you're around in the right areas. A problem we see quite often, and it applies more in industries that are slightly more adult, or topics that have more adult behind them, is that there's a lot of sites that you probably would initially disavow and go, okay, you know, this is an adult, we don't want to be associated with that. But actually, if you are a Love Honey, for example, or an Ann Summers, you are going to have links on sites that have a more mature theme and topic. But actually, that's completely relevant to what you're selling. So whereas a lot of people, especially if they're just using the tools, would look down that list and go, oh, this is a forum about sex, we don't want that, we don't want that. In this instance, it's super relevant. So that's why context is so important when you're looking at the links that you want to disavow, but also looking at the links that you want to build. Another one that we've seen is that old links can come back to haunt people. And I'm sure the guys will agree that sometimes when you've received reconsideration requests for clients, on the very odd chance you do get them tell you an example of a link, which is so rare, it's sometimes been links from 2-3 years ago. And, you know, I know a lot of people think that links that you've built years and years ago don't impact on today. They still do. And it is worth the time and effort in going back through your historic backlink profile to look for those old links. Quite often, it is old directories that might have spawned up, like the Globe, for example. Many people had links on the Globe like pre-2012, and now there's about 60 different domain sites that are all versions of the Globe. So you may have disavowed the Globe years ago, but you need to go through and make sure that you've got rid of all these variation spin-offs that it's done to. There's also quite a few article spinning sites that people may have again done years ago when the e-zine was all the trend. There's ones that have kind of spun off from that and started again. So you just need to look back through your old links as much as looking at new links that have been obtained, because some of those old ones can come back and kind of bite you in the bum if you're not too careful. And my third little thing was just, I thought SEM recently released a study, which I just thought it was a really interesting read, to be honest. I know that with all studies, you know, the correlation causation argument, but I think it was quite interesting to see the breadth that they'd gone to and some of the findings that they had from it lay in with what a lot of people are saying about links and when looking at your disavow. So if you've got 5 minutes, I think it's just worth a quick skim just to give some advice when you're doing your next backlink review too.
Agreed. Agreed on all of those points. Links are fascinating, and as I said, it really is a game of cat and mouse. And as you were talking about in Google's quarterly reports and talking about how it's a risk to the business, they don't want people messing with their algorithm or bypassing it or screwing up the results. And so they really are out to get this. I think it's worth starting by saying that things changed a lot in 2012 with Penguin. I want to say it was Penguin 4. I can't keep track anymore. But Google made the switch from manually rolling out periodic actions to hit you and penalize you for links to mostly devaluing links. And the reason they made the switch at the time was because negative SEO was just way too easy. And they needed to ignore the vast majority of crappy looking links because of just how easy that was. But, obviously link builders can be very, very sophisticated. And so Google is doing their best to figure out algorithmically what's good and bad. And I think it's important to call out that there's, maybe two buckets of bad. There's bad in that Google doesn't like it, and there's bad in that it's actively causing you harm. And there are absolutely some industries where you're going to have to do some things that are not in line with Google's best practices in order to play, because everybody in the space is doing it. Like adult firearms, vapes, all the spaces where it's difficult or impossible to run ads. Those are the spaces where, link building gets gray to black and you're more likely to run into risk. But I would say if you're trying to identify if a link is going to cause you trouble or not, there's three main things. So one, as Laura said, context. Like, does this link make sense? A site about bikes wouldn't be linking to a shipping container storage company. An article about gardening wouldn't link to a travel blog. Like, if it looks unusual, if you're reading through a page and you see a link and it goes to something that's just completely unrelated or uses anchor text that doesn't fit, like that's obvious, right? It needs to be topically relevant or bust. And if you're getting links from things that are completely unrelated to what it's being linked to, that's probably a red flag. Two, I would like to say, does it pass the mom test? And granted, my mom knows nothing whatsoever about SEO, but if I showed her a link from some 90s looking pop-up riddled abomination, she would call me on it, and your client's probably going to do so as well. So if you have anything from an absolutely glaringly awful site, just get rid of those. Those are safe to get rid of preemptively. However, and I think this is extra important, when you're doing link analysis and putting together a disavow file, I've seen way, way too many sites just cut far too deep. They mark a whole bunch of things as bad that aren't bad. They're not hurting them. Like maybe they're gray or a little fishy, but they fall in the bucket of like, this isn't terrible. Yeah, it's kind of relevant. The site, maybe it's a lower quality site, but this is the type of thing, if Google doesn't like it, Google can handle. And as long as you didn't pay for the link or it's not contributing to overly optimized keyword-rich anchor text, those are probably safe to keep. So I would say when you're doing a link removal, in most cases, you should be cutting shallow, not overly deep. Be a bit careful. And as both Laura and Dylan have pointed out, the tools are, I hesitate to say garbage. They're useful for providing you with some information, but that information is incomplete and in some cases very incorrect. And you need to, put together your own sniff test. Go look at those pages, determine how they were built. And to that end, I would say whenever you're dealing with link analysis, you try and put them in one of four buckets. This was created by the company. This was created by an agency the company hired. This was created by spammers, maybe pointing to a hacked page on your site at some point, or this was created by somebody who's trying to do negative SEO against you. And it's likely to be in one of those four buckets. I've seen all of those crop up. In a lot of cases, it's from an agency, a past agency who was cutting corners or doing things they shouldn't have. And the client either wasn't aware or doesn't want to admit they were aware. But there you have it.
Awesome.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, very interesting insights that you've had. All shared. We've got some questions from the audience, so I'll pass over to Carrie.
Great, thank you, Joe. So the first question we have is for Dylan. Would you recommend doing a link audit when you first take on a new client, even though they do not have a penalty?
Yes, we normally do. And part of our initial site audit is we look at the whole site, including the backlink profile. We try to get an idea of, well, we also ask some questions that may be leading in a way where, hey, have you purchased links in the past before? Some people come out and they're happy to say, oh yeah, we bought links here and we bought links here. And that kind of gives us an indication of where we need to go with things. But yeah, for the most part, we will look at the backlink profile and look at the keyword anchor specifically. It's just a really common way for people to build links, and they're much more obvious there. And then after that audit's done, we can kind of give people an idea of how much it would be for a full audit, or full link audit, sorry. Because from there, we've seen good results with, even though they don't have a manual action on their site, if they've been building unnatural links over the past, we've seen some evidence that Google may be actually algorithmically suppressing them. And so cleaning up that link profile can really help in the long term.
Great, thank you. We have a question for Laura. If old links do haunt you, how would you go about fixing that situation? Would it just be a disavow to cover it all?
I think it's a case of just keeping on top of everything. And, whilst we're saying don't use tools for everything, there is a benefit to looking at them to see, especially like Majestic, to see historic profile within them.
Oops, it looks like we've lost Laura.
She will come back.
Yeah, we can go back to that question in a bit. We have a question here. We did a lot of guest posting back in the day. In fact, that's almost all we did. Loads of these links are still live. We've not got a penalty yet. Should I worry? And anything that you can recommend?
I mean, how topically relevant are the guest posts? Like, are they high quality? Is this a post that's really adding value to somebody? Like, someone's going to read this and be happy that they read it? And is the link, again, contextually relevant, not overly keyword rich? If it fits all of those, I'd say fine, keep it. And if it doesn't, then ditch it.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say, and if you can try to get a handle on the scale of it, like if you've been doing guest posting in the past, but then for the last few years, you've been building good links. Maybe it's not a big deal anymore. But if it's still a massive percentage of your profile, then it could be an issue.
I have this strong feeling that at some point Google will completely quit doing manual actions, because again, like, I still see negative SEO working if you do it in a very specific way. And at some point that's going to happen to somebody who's big enough that they're going to call Google on it and turn it into a press nightmare, and Google's going to have no choice but to stop with manual actions. So I think at some point they'll get there, but obviously they'd love to do away with using links as a signal entirely. But
yeah, absolutely.
Generally better safe than sorry.
Great, thank you. Well, it looks like we've got Laura back. Should we go back to that question that we had earlier? Do you want me to repeat it, or?
You could, sorry, everything died.
That's fine. If old links do haunt you, how would you go about fixing that situation? Would it just be a disavow to cover it all?
I think disavow is definitely a starting point with the historic links, and although we said don't use tools for everything, when we look and use things like Majestic, that can give us a really good idea of old links. But I think you've got to couple it with a really strong link building strategy to get new, really good links in, whether that's from a PR angle, which is one that we tend to advise to clients, and then we can get top tier national press links in for them to replace what you're getting rid of from the old. So you're kind of keeping that balance with the links.
That's really useful, thank you. We have another question from Maret. This is for all of you. Many people use tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush to find backlinks. Are you saying don't even use it for that, or just don't let the tools decide for you?
The latter. Don't let the tool tell you what's bad. Just let the tool tell you what's there and make your own assessment.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And we use a whole bunch of tools. Like, we use Ahrefs, SEMrush, Majestic, and then also Search Console, and we combine those all together, and then we will manually audit things to try to get a handle on what the situation is.
Great. Anything you want to add, Laura? Or
Yeah, exactly what the guy said. You can use the tools to help. Oh, no, carry on.
Great, thank you. We have a question here. I saw Parifar, an ex-Google webmaster trends, on previous Tea Time SEO web episodes say, don't bother link disavowing unless you have a penalty. Do you agree?
I would sort of disagree, just because, I mean, if you've been building unnatural links and you don't have a penalty, you probably want to either ask the other site owner to get rid of them or disavow them, because you could get a manual action in the future.
And I'm in the it depends bucket. Like, this is a risk assessment. And so I would have the discussion with the business owners and the people involved. I would take a look at the links and try and make a determination, like, how high risk do I consider these to be? Is there a chance that we're going to end up disavowing something that's actually going to hurt us? You know, it's a gut check. So I wouldn't automatically say you need to get rid of them, but you need to take a look and weigh your risks.
Yeah, 100%. Also, I mean, it costs money to audit links too, right? You need to pay people to do that, or you need to do it yourself. And so there's an assessment in cost too, whether or not there's an upside to actually spending the amount of money that it's required to get rid of these links.
I'd consider your current position as well. If you are ranking page 1 for everything for your core terms, the links probably aren't holding you back. Whereas if you're kind of past page 3 onwards, maybe they are, and it's worth doing that disavow to see whether that's going to help you improve your ranking. I've seen cases where doing a disavow when someone doesn't have a manual penalty has increased rankings. So I think, as the guys have said, it's a case-by-case scenario.
That's really useful, thank you. We have another question for you, Laura. What do you think of press releases, for example, using companies such as Meltwater to distribute them?
It's not something we advise. Press releases are wonderful when it's something that you're doing personally and sending out to individual journalists with the story. And the press release is just more of a guide for what the story is. It contains the key facts, it contains the quote. I almost think of it as it's like a little resource sheet for the journalist, rather than going, please copy and paste this onto 57 websites. Thank you very much. So yeah, the kind of ones where it's a spin and they syndicate the press releases, definitely don't suggest using those. Do your own, build your own media lists up and send personalized emails to each journalist. That's going to be your strongest way to get those links.
Yeah, I mean, if the question is, are the links in the press release going to help you or hurt you? I don't think they're going to do anything. I think Google's going to ignore them. If you're asking, like, are doing traditional PR tactics to get your business covered in major publications, is that going to help? Yeah, that's going to help, as long as you have something that's actually newsworthy and worth someone's time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, like, in any situation where Google knows this is a way people build links, like press releases. This used to be a huge thing in the past, where people would send out press releases for everything, and it was like, it actually helped them rank. They just discount these now. They don't look at them for value.
They're looking specifically for editorial given links. A third party had to approve this. If you have full control over creating the link yourself, it's safe to assume it does nothing.
Yeah, do it the long way for PR. Get the links the right way by building those relationships with journalists and actually adding value to what they're saying.
Great, thank you. And we have our last question here. How long do you usually spend on link auditing, and how can you justify this time to a client?
It obviously depends on the size of the link profile, and whether or not, again, they have a manual action. I mean, if they have a manual action, there's really no way around it. You need to go in and manually audit all of these links and classify them, and then go back and forth with the client, deciding whether or not they've actually paid for these, or these are just spam, or whatever it may be. We have like a base rate on essentially per link, but it varies because again, profiles are so different these days, where like you could have a profile of 10,000 backlinks and 90% of them are spam. And then you could run it through a tool and get a good idea that most of these are kind of useless anyway. And so it's really going to vary. And then some of them are going to be like 90% require a lot of input from the site owner. And so you just got to either do your own thing. I mean, it's either per link or hourly, however you charge.
Yeah, see, we bill on a day rate. So I suppose from the billing aspect of how much we charge for it, it's probably a little different than other people because it's just included in what we do. Where even if we're doing a PR campaign for somebody, we look at links first. But any client we work with, whether it's SEO or PR, we take and export all the links right at the start so that we have that kind of benchmark for when we come back and go, we've done this. So we'll always have a glance through. Then, it could be a case that you spot like 5, 6 really bad links. I think the more and more you do it, the easier it is to spot a mile away which link you would automatically get rid of. So I think, as Dylan said, it definitely depends on whether you're working with 200 domains or like 10,000 as to how long it's going to take. But I think the more and more you do it, it almost becomes quicker when you're doing it manually as well, because you get to know certain domains as being the ones that people tend to have if they were doing SEO 6-7 years ago, and that they're ones that you want to put on the get rid of list.
Yeah. As for the second half of the question, how do you justify the time to a client? I would say with data, if you can get it, what is the value over, say, the course of 3 to 6 months to a company for their organic traffic? So this is, if your organic traffic goes away because you get a major penalty, how much is it going to cost you over the time period you're probably going to have to spend to fix it? And then multiply that by whatever you think your risk score is. If you have a ton of really, really bad links and you think there's a high chance that you're going to get penalized for it, just do some math and say, all right, well, I think there's a $50,000 chance in the next 6 months that this is going to bite you and it's going to cost us $5,000 to fix it. That's just smart math. Yeah,
that makes sense. And there's so many examples of big companies getting hit in the past as well, that kind of like secondarily backs up if they're still questioning the math, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, guys. I think those are all the questions we have. Back over to Joe.
Thank you very much. I just had one last sort of comment just about when you're working with clients, just about those that want to do things like guest posting, and it's not one keyword in overstuffed in an article. If they do just guest posting, and that's the only link building they want to do, what would you advise?
Put more eggs in different baskets. That's not normal. I mean, no site is going to get all its links from a single, tactic. And if you do that, it's going to look weird. Google's really good at pattern matching, and that's a pattern that would stand out like a red flag.
Yeah, we tend to push them to vary out the way of link building that they want to do. If, as you said, if it's like a column that they've got somewhere as a guest post, wonderful. And if somebody wants to put that time up to build a column, it looks so much more natural than if it is like, here's a guest post on Mummy and Me, then like mums go shopping, mum goes with this. Like, they're the ones that don't look natural that we don't want to do. So exactly as Sam said, we just get them to try and broaden out and think more about newsjacking and generate requests and PR elements too, just to really make it look supernatural.
And just to confirm, you're about PR or PR news sites, you would advise against that then? When people say, oh, we should do a PR, we should do a press release. I mean, have you found that it works maybe in other countries and not and better in some countries than others?
Yeah, sorry. When PR to me is like when we have those relationships with journalists, build a media list up and give them a story that they particularly want, rather than using like a news lawyer to get it syndicated out.
You're going to get a lot more hunting than you are fishing when it comes to PR. If you really want to do something PR wise, but you're too lazy to do the relationship building with the PR folks, go use something like Haro, help a reporter out.
Yeah.
That can be a good middle ground.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much. There's some wonderful tips and insights that you've all shared today. It was great to have you all on board, dialing in from 3 different countries. Tomorrow we have content audits with Ollie and Charlie here at 4 p.m. So if anybody would like to know more information about how to actually audit the content on your site, please tune in tomorrow at 4. And I just want to say a big thank you again to Dylan, Sam, and Laura for joining us today. If you would like to be on stage and share some interesting insights and tips, we'll be running this in June as well, for now at least, on Mondays and Thursdays. Please get in contact with Carrie. She's been sending out some of the agendas and some of the information about the blog posts to you all. And thank you everyone for coming on today. Thank you, Marit. Thank you, Sarah, Raf, Laurence, for joining us today. And we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you soon.